Last year, India brought in over 18,000 tons of lithium worth over 11,000 crore rupees. India needed about 28 of these, and by 2030, that jump around 270, nearly 10 times more in 5 years. The third, the positive side, is the single most expensive part of the battery, more than one third of the battery's cost. It's lithium. And Neogen Chemicals has quietly spent decades mastering lithium chemistry. Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Guys, today we are looking at a sector most people are ignoring and a set of 12 listed stocks riding it that would quietly become some of the India's most important companies of this decade. And here's the hook. So think about an electric vehicle. Everybody talks about the motor and the design behind it, but the real heart of it is the battery. And inside that battery is something interesting, chemistry. A pinch of salt and some gray and black powder, a special liquid. And that's what actually stores the energy in an electric car. And the battery alone is somewhere around 40% of the electric vehicle cost. So the most important thing in an electric vehicle would be the chemistry behind it. Now here's the catch and the whole reason for today's video. Almost all of that chemistry is imported, and last year India brought in over 18,000 tons of lithium worth over 11,000 crore rupees, and 2 out of every 3 of those coming from China. And for the most important powder inside the battery, China makes about 98% of the world supply. Yes guys, 98%. And India makes almost zero. And the strange part is that India has its own lithium, a big deposit in Jammu and Kashmir, but it's still in the ground because when the government auctioned it, not a single serious bidder turned up. So today we do something as a country, we do something backwards. We assemble the finished battery but import the raw materials that go inside. Now picture a country that can build a car but has to import the engine, the steel and the fuel. And that's where India stands on batteries today. And that gap is the whole opportunity. And a small group of Indian listed companies are racing to fill it from ground up. And a couple of them can do something only 3 or 4 companies in the world can do. So here's the plan guys. First a quick look at why this sector is waking up, the demand, the money and the government push. Then we open up the battery layer by layer and I will show you the exact listed stock chasing each part. 12 companies, and by the end you will understand this sector better than most of the people. And guys, for those who are new here, my name is Aryan, I am from Divitiae Investments, and today we are breaking down the battery chemical sector. And whichever stocks that we discussed today, there is no buy or sell recommendation, but if you want to build a curated portfolio for yourself, reach us out at divitiae.in or invest via our small cases, the link is in the description, and subscribe to the channel for more such videos. Now let's get back to why this sector and why now. Now there are 5 different things happening at the same time and all pushing in the same direction. First, people have actually started buying. Guys, electric vehicles are still only about 8.5% of all vehicles sold in India. But look at the bigger picture. 5 years ago, it was almost zero. And this past year, more than 25 lakh electric vehicles were sold in a single year. And the market doesn't grow that fast and then stop, right? So this is just the beginning. Second, the batteries are getting cheaper every single year. And that's the quiet magic of the whole story. Of course, as the battery gets cheaper, the vehicle will get cheaper. And as more people can afford it, which brings the next wave of buyers in India. And in 2026, the Indian made cell crossed an important milestone on the cost. Of course, every rupee that comes off the battery price pulls more demand towards the stocks that we discussed today. The third point, and this has nothing to do with the cars. Guys, think about AI and all these giant data centers coming up. They need power that never cuts, not even for a second. And that increasingly means huge banks of batteries sitting next to the grid, storing electricity. So the same chemistry now rides 2 waves at once, electric vehicles and the AI boom, 2 engines and 1 set of companies. The fourth one, the demand wall is enormous. And this is just a number to remember. Guys, battery are measured in gigawatt hours, right? But don't worry about the word. Just think of it as how many batteries that the country needs. Last year, India needed about 28 of these, and by 2030, that jump around 270, nearly 10 times more in 5 years. So to back its own makers, the government has put over 15,000 crore rupees on the table to build batteries and their materials in India. Now money that flows straight into the companies in this video. And the fifth point, guys, the whole world wants a supplier that isn't China. Now because of the new rules abroad, car makers in America and Europe now need to buy their battery materials from somewhere other than one country that dominates the space. And India is the natural second choice. So these companies aren't just an India story, they could become suppliers to the world. So the exports could increase. Adoption, cheaper batteries, and the AI wave, the giant import gap, and the world hunting for an alternative to China, 5 tailwinds all blowing the same way and all landing on the same handful of companies. Now, before we go to the companies, there's one set of numbers you have to hear because the scale is genuinely impressive. Now, here's the number and the market as it stands today. Add up all the battery materials sold in India in a year, right? Every powder, every liquid, and every part that goes inside the cell, and the number comes to around 16,000 crore rupees. And that's the whole part right now. Now, if we see in mid 2030s, that same part roughly doubles to nearly 30,000 crore rupees. And that's the careful estimate. So it would be interesting to see this trajectory here. Now, before going to the stocks, let's see what comes in a battery because it's very important, guys. And this little bit technical, so bear with me. Now, why I'm making you understand this so deeply? Because each part is a business here, and that's what we are really here for, right? So, 4 parts here. First, the cathode, the positive side. It's the single most expensive part of the battery, more than 1/3 of the battery's cost. And the cheaper and the safer battery India has chosen, the LFP type. It's a fine powder, and whoever makes it well owns the most valuable spot in the battery chain. And this LFP choice matters more than it sounds. Because it explains half of the bets in this video. There are broadly two kinds of batteries in the world. One is the older premium type, call it the high range battery, packed with expensive metals like nickel and cobalt. And the other is LFP, cheaper, safer, and longer lasting, but made mostly from iron and phosphate, which were far more cheaper and common. And for years, the premium type led the market. But since around 2023, the world has shifted hard towards the LFP. Because for the scooters, buses, and everyday car and grid storage, cheap and safe beats the premium here. And India has bet almost entirely on the LFP part. So when you hear a company say LFP cathode, hear this, they are building for the mass market battery, the one India will actually make millions of. So remember that because this word will come back again and again. Second would be the anode, the negative side, mostly graphite. So guys, cathode and anode together nearly are 2/3 of the battery cost. And that's where the big money is. Third would be the electrolyte, the liquid that energy moves through. It's really the three things in one: a salt, some solvents, and a few additives. 3 products and 3 different Indian companies chasing them. And fourth and the final would be the binder. Now think of it as the glue that holds everything in place. Sounds a minor work, but very few companies in the world can make it well. So that was the whole map, guys. Now let's put a real listed company on each part and see who's winning on the each side. The first company in the list, Gujarat Flourochemicals, the one building the whole battery and the most ambitious company on the list. Guys, Gujarat Flourochemicals has been in the fluorine chemistry since late 1980s. And for decades, best known for refrigerant gases and high performance plastics. Quiet, industrial, not a name most retail investors ever thought about, but a few years ago, it made a bold decision. While most companies in this space were picking one layer of the battery chain to master, GFCL set up a dedicated battery arm, GFCL EV, and went after almost the entire chemistry set that we discussed. And today, under one roof, it makes the salt, the electrolyte, the additives, the LFP cathode, the binder, and is now adding the anode. On its last earnings call, the management said its products already cover about 70% of the whole value chain of the entire LFP battery cell. Now, guys, who is the client list? Now, the most important product for Gujarat flourochemicals, that key salt inside the battery liquid, the one that industry calls LiPF6, has already been approved by most of the global buyers and with orders booked for the coming year. And foreign customers spend months testing an Indian plant before they say yes. So the approvals are real and the stamp of arrival is already been set. And it is why the World Bank investment arm chose GFCL battery business for its first ever battery material investment in India. So guys, the thesis is simple. This is the most complete battery material platform in the country and is already winning global validation. Now if you look at the number, guys, the key to understand the company. Last year the whole company did around 5,000 crores of sales and 574 crores in profit, about 11% profit margin. But here's the thing you have to understand, almost 100% of that came from old chemical business. The new battery business, the exciting one, brought in zero revenue, almost zero revenue. So there's a two businesses under one roof. A big chemical business, steady, profitable, paying all the bills today, and next to it, a tiny battery business, near zero revenue today, was actually losing the money because right now it's still being built. Now the real question here is how big the battery business can become. The management is guided around 4,000 crores of revenue every year, right? And just to let that land, the whole company today does about 5,000 crores of revenue. So they are building a second business that almost from the scratch that could double the company revenue. And they already raised the money to build it. And that's the bet we are looking at. Now the real risk here is the extra revenue only shows up when the big global customers finish approving GFCL material. And that runs on their clock, not GFCL, because of if those approvals get delayed or China floods the market with cheap material again and again, the whole payoff slides further out. So that was Gujarat Flourochemicals, a profitable chemical company today, quietly building what could become an equally large battery business by the end of this decade. With the money and the customers already lined up, but we will see what the trajectory of the profits and the revenue will be. Now let's go to the next company, Neogen Chemicals. Now if GFCL is trying to make everything, our next company, Neogen Chemicals, it sits one critical layer below as the most honest company in this whole list. Guys, Neogen has been around since 1989 and for over 3 decades, it has built its name on two difficult chemistries, bromine and lithium. These are niche, complex chemicals, the kind that go into medicines, farming and electronics. High value work that takes years of expertise to master. And very few companies in India have ever built that kind of capability. And that's Neogen's real strength. But here's the interesting part. Look at that word again, lithium. Guys, now what does every electric vehicle, every battery, every energy storage system in the world needs? Lithium. And Neogen Chemicals has quietly spent decades mastering lithium chemistry, long before anyone was even talking about electric vehicles. And now it is stepping into it at the right moment. It's making two things that go inside the battery's liquid, the electrolyte and the salt called LiPF6 that we already discussed, right? And that salt is so hard to make that only about 4 companies in the entire world can do it outside China. And Neogen Chemicals is one of them. Now who actually buys from them? Neogen is already supplying and getting approved by leading Indian and global battery cell makers. And 3 separate battery chemical makers in the United States are in the final stages of clearing the salt for the purchase. And to build all of this, it partnered with 2 respected Japanese firms, Mitsubishi and century-old Morita, bringing the world-class technology and the expertise. Now one mistake they did was They put the factory before even the demand arrived. And a year ago, they told investors to expect around 300 crores in revenue. But the real number in the battery business was just 36 crores. The battery factories in India got delayed and the global prices crashed and the fire hit one of its plants. So last year was a hard one and the numbers showed it. The whole company did 862 crores of revenue, up by 11%. But almost all of it was still the old business, bromine and lithium, just like GFCL. The battery business, the whole reason to look at this stock, just did 36 crores. And the profit actually fell to 29 crores. And the reason is simple. It borrowed heavily to build the new battery plants and that interest ate into the profit. So the factory is ready, but the customers aren't quite there yet. And the profit is squeezed while it waits. And that's the honest picture. But here they have given a clear guidance. The company does about 862 crores today, but the target 4 to 5 years out by FY29 is around 4,000 crores revenue, roughly 4 to 5 times bigger. And as you can see where that comes from, the battery business is meant to go from 36 crores today to around 2,500 crores. The business does almost nothing today, becoming the biggest part of the company, just like GFCL again. And as you can see, why they say it with a conviction. They're not learning something new, guys. They are taking a skill they already owned for decades into the market that's already exploding. Now that was Neogen Chemicals. 35 years of hard-won chemistry turned straight towards India's battery future. Big ambition, real customers lining up, and the honesty to admit how far it still has to travel. Now guys, before moving to the next company, one quick thing. If you want to build a curated portfolio for yourself, reach us out at Divitiae.in. Or you can also explore our small cases, the Divitiae Fortune 2030 Alpha and many more. Simple words may, it's a ready-made basket of stocks built by next decade theme. The link is in description. And if you are finding the value here, subscribe to our channel. It genuinely helps us to make more of these. Now let's go to the next company, Himadri Speciality. Guys, our first two companies are spending today to earn tomorrow, right? But this one is different. It's already profitable and it's building its battery future out of its own cash. Himadri has been around since 1987 and for decades it was known for one of the world's largest makers of black powder that goes into tires, plus other carbon-based materials for aluminium and steel. Solid, unglamorous, very profitable business. But the exciting turn is what it's today doing with the expertise now. Walking straight into battery materials and the two richest layers, the cathode and the graphite anode that we discussed. And here's a detail that makes it stand out. One of its key customers is the company building a large battery factory in Bengaluru. And Himadri doesn't just supply it, it owns stake of over 17% in that customer, which has already approved Himadri's anode material. And the company name is International Battery Company, an American firm. And here's there's a clear hedge too. Himadri hasn't bet on one kind of anode alongside a regular graphite. It has bought the rights to a newer technology from an Australian company called Sicona, which gives a battery around 20% more power and charge it nearly 40% faster. So whichever way the technology turns, cheaper or higher performance, Himadri Speciality wants to be ready. And last year was its best year in numbers. Sales of around 4,660 crores and profit of 755 crores, up by strong 36%. Now the genuinely good thing here is, the whole battery push, they are funding from their own cash. They are not taking any debt or equity for it. And here the management has given a clear one target to hold on. Profit last year was 755 crores. 2 years before that, it was around 555 crores. And they promised to double that 555 to cross 1100 crores of profit by FY28. Guys, here the honest risk is the business is still small today and the customer approval takes quarters. And the company is running many projects at once. But if it executes even reasonably, this quietly shifts from a chemical company into a battery material leader. Now the next company, Philip Carbon Black Limited, PCBL. Guys, the last three companies were doing well, but this one just had a rough year. And strangely, that's what makes it interesting. Guys, PCBL goes all the way back to 1960. Its main product is the black powder that makes car and trucks tires stronger. A big established business, but a cyclical one. Now in battery side, they are into materials that help the battery work better. Plus a few early projects aimed at future batteries. Now the problem is, guys, the sales held steady at around 8,000 crores, but the profit was cut more than half, from 435 crores to 198 crores last year. And the problem wasn't demand, it was margins getting squeezed, as cost rose faster than the company could pass them on. Now guys, the main thing to watch here, can the new battery angle turn around the company? That was PCBL Chemical, and that was a part 1 closure. And these companies making the chemistry, salt, the powder and the binder. But all of it just sits there until someone buys them, right? And builds a battery. So who are the buyers here? Two names you have known your whole life for a completely different product. And then the strangest part of the story, two companies turning dead batteries back into fresh raw material. And that I will cover in the part 2 of this video. I'll see you there, guys. Thank you so much. Stay invested.